sports.
We are Fox Sports. We are Fox Sports.
Last night, Philadelphia got to left-hander Matt Moore early. And Jonathan Papelbon shut the door as the Phillies took game one of this series. Tonight, rookie right-hander Nathan Carnes goes to the hill for the Rays, looking to build on an impressive first half of the season. The Rays and the Phillies coming up on Sun Sports. Tonight, we welcome you to the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, PA, for the middle game of this series between the Rays and the Philadelphia Phillies. Hi again, everyone. Welcome to an evening of Rays baseball with Brian Anderson. I'm Dwayne Stats. Great to have you looking in. Well, after dropping last night's game 5-3, PA, the Rays continue to look for offense. In fact, they have not scored more than 4 runs in a game in their last 8 games, and they're hitting combined 189 over that stretch. They're happy to have the bat of Steven Souza Jr. back in the lineup tonight.
An enthusiastic Steven Souza Jr. And I'm going to tell you what, you're right. This offense looking for any help that it can get. You get this guy back in the lineup, and you see right there, it leads the Rays, the only guy in double digits in home runs with 15. He's scored 41. He's driven in 33. So he's a guy that you're going to plug right in at the top of that lineup. He's going to be in the number 2 hole. And off this young starter, Aaron Nola, making his major league debut, you hope that he gets some mistakes out over the plate, because we know when he makes solid contact, that ball has the potential to go a long way, and that's exactly what this Rays offense needs.
After dropping 2 of 3 in Toronto in last night's game here in the opening game of this series in Philly, the Rays now 1-3 on this road trip. And they'll be sending the right-hander Nathan Carnes to the hill after his 5th win of the year. The Rays and the Phillies right around the corner, just minutes away. Game 2 of this series between the Rays and the Phillies from Citizens Bank Park in Philly. Rays trying to pull even in this current series. First regular season series between these two teams since 2012. For your Southern Ford dealers, the starting lineup for the Rays tonight will find John Jaso leading off and playing left field. Then Steven Souza Jr. hitting second and right field. Evan Longoria follows with James Loney, Logan Forsythe, Kevin Kiermaier down the middle. Jake Elmore, Rene Rivera, and Nathan Carnes rounding out the lineup for Kevin Cash.
Well, we have a major league debut being made here tonight by right-hander Aaron Nola. You see his numbers from AA Reading and AAA Lehigh Valley. 18 total starts, 18 walks in 109 and a third innings. He was the first round pick, 7th overall in 2014. So a quick riser through the Philadelphia
out of LSU, and we're set to play ball. First pitch of this game presented by Pinch a Penny, and it's down and in to John Jaso. So we are underway. 1 ball, no strikes. There's a strike. It's 1-1.
And as you can see already, that's not the typical arm slot. You think of a starting pitcher, more of a bullpen type arm, really low in that 3/4 arm slot range.
That's down. 2-1. Word we get on him, the Phillies like his aptitude. They like his command of pitches. He's not a flamethrower, but a pretty good fastball. There's a pitch driven into right center field, off the wall. Extra bases for Jaso, and he's in standing with a double. An extra base hit to start this game for the Rays.
Well, John Jaso, he gets himself in a 2-1 count. Young pitcher trying to get back into it. That ball down middle, and John Jaso able to get underneath it, lift it with authority, one hop the wall in right center field, and the Rays already here with a scoring opportunity.
Now Steven Souza Jr. just back off the disabled list. First pitch is a strike. The Rays last night were 2 for 9 with men in scoring position. Overall this year, hitting .219 with runners out there in scoring position. Souza takes a strike, puts him down in the count, 0-2.
Well, like you said, Dwayne, the Phillies as an organization love his command. There were scouts that said, listen, he's got better command than 3/4 of the starting pitchers in the big leagues right now.
And he strikes out Souza looking.
Well, that's not exactly the return that you were looking for from Steven Souza Jr. Aaron Nola just pumps 3 fastballs right by him, and not a swing was taken. Interesting, very interesting at bat. You wonder what he was looking for.
There was a stretch early in the year when Souza, and we all know he's going to strike out a lot, but he took so many called third strikes, and you'd like to see him swing the bat in that situation.
Runner in scoring position. You're the guy that, leading this team in home runs with 15.
And one of the reasons you're in the second spot, manager figures you might see a few more fastballs there. He saw 3.
Yes.
And is called out on strikes.
And didn't swing at one of them.
Here's Longoria taking ball 1. Evan at .266. 9 home runs. Big cut and a miss. Fastball, and that one hit 93, and that's about what we hear is the topper on that fastball velocity for Nola.
Yeah, he'll occasionally scrape 94, but you're right. That's high end, 90 low end. So he's a 90 to 93, 94 guy, a slurvy breaking ball, and a good changeup.
Now he's ahead of Longoria.
You can see how he can be effective, you know, not only down in the zone with good arm side run on the fastball, but also coming upstairs. You know, that pitch right there was around the letters, but with that lower arm angle, that ball seemingly rising as it gets towards home plate.
Close. Breaking ball missed. And it's 2-2.
That just stayed in off the plate. Very close. Nice sell job by Cameron Rupp, but it was not a strike.
And a cut and a miss. Boy, came back with that breaking ball and strikes out Longoria.
And he takes enough off of it to be effective not only with break but with speed. Let's take a look at that Philadelphia defense and see how it's going to line up tonight. Brought to you by BMW. In the outfield left to right, we have Cody Ashe, Odubel Herrera, and Dominic Brown. Across the infield third to first, Andres Blanco, Freddie Galvis, Cesar Hernandez, and Ryan Howard with Cameron Rupp behind the plate.
But James Loney, 0 for 4 last night. Up here with a man in scoring position. And the first pitch is a fastball taken. Strike one. Leadoff double by Jaso. He's still at second now with 2 outs.
Well, these have been the scenarios that have plagued this team. Leadoff double and 2 unproductive outs, both coming via the strikeout.
And Loney is now behind 1-2.
And there was the changeup at 83 miles an hour. Same arm action, same arm slot as the fastball. Minus about 10. You can see that ball just diving off the plate, eluding the swing.
And Loney, a little piece of it. The fastball holding the count at 1-2. On the breaking ball there, tantalizingly close, and the count is 2-2.
Yeah, he's had a couple. He saw the one that was inside to Evan Longoria. This one, very similar spot. Actually, according to Fox Tracks, closer, but not called.
The 2-2. Ground ball to the right side. Hernandez handles it, and the Rays already 0 for 3 with men in scoring position. Lead Jaso at second. Nola, the 22-year-old right-hander, gave up the double and then retired Souza, Longoria, and Aloni. So we go to the bottom of the first with no score, and a look at the lineup for Philadelphia. Herrera's going to lead it off, followed by Galvis, the shortstop, second, and then Hernandez at second, hitting third. Ryan Howard is the cleanup man in front of Cody Ashe. Dominic Brown in right field. Andres Blanco hits seventh. Cameron Rupp is the catcher, batting eighth, and Nola the pitcher, ninth.
Well, it's been a little bit of a layoff here for Nathan Carnes as the Rays have strategically put him towards the back end of the rotation here after the break. Give him a little bit more rest. He had a very busy first half, as you see, 104 innings, 99 strikeouts, at opponent's average of 238, threw the ball very well in that first half, and hoping to pick back up right here against the Phillies.
Well, here's Herrera, and the first pitch from Carnes is a high fastball. 1 ball and no strikes. We saw Herrera last night, and the idea that he likes to bunt the ball. Longoria even with the bag and a step or two in at third. He takes the pitch, and it's low, holding in time. 2-0. He's an aggressive hitter up there. Leading off, he's hitting .275, but he's walked only 9 times.
Pretty indicative of this entire lineup. I mean, even when you think about Ryan Howard and the power that he is able to create, only 15 walks this year.
Big cut and a miss. Carnes challenged him with a 2-0 fastball, got it by him. Three balls and a strike. Carnes pitching on 11 days rest. The last time he worked was against the Royals in Kansas City, and you can remember he fell behind 3-0 on his 5th pitch of that game. Lorenzo Cain hit a 2-run home run. And now ball 4 up and in, and Herrera, who does not walk, draws the base on balls.
And Dwayne, and that's what you wonder. You wonder how, Nathan Carnes, how sharp will he be, especially in the early going with that long of a layoff. A lot of times a veteran starter who's been, in those situations before, they know how to prepare themselves to be ready to go. A younger starter, it's hard. Usually you're not going 11, 12 days without starting a ball game. So you wonder about how sharp he's going to be.
Here's Freddie Galvis, the shortstop, and that's a great point. The word was the Rays were very pleased with his bullpen in Toronto. There is ball 1, but boy, there's nothing like being out there on the mound, and you know that better than anybody.
And to that end, where has every pitch that he's missed been? It's been ump. That's a guy that's strong. That's a guy that's overthrowing right now. That's a guy who hasn't been out there in a while. Everything has been up. Even that pitch, he gets the called strike, but that's a curveball up. You don't want to be up there. You want to be up. Rays pitchers like to be up by design when they want to be, not pitch after pitch after pitch. And that's a guy who's just overamped right now.
Two balls and a strike. That's why the All-Star break really, in more ways than one, can be a double-edged sword. You get the layoff. You like to get the rest, but you get the layoff, and then you come back, and aside from maybe being a little rusty, you're stronger than you're normally going to feel out there. High fly ball back into right. Souza's going to go to the wall, and he'll make the catch, reaching for the wall for the out. A long drive by Galvis, and Souza was there just with room to haul it in.
Any ball that comes off the bat in this ballpark that sounds like good contact, has good height, you worry about it because it will give up the home run. This was close. Just a fly ball to right.
We talked about that last night, how this is one of the top home run hitting parks over in the National League. Here we are in interleague play. The Cincinnati so far tops, but this is always 3rd or 4th in the National League in home runs allowed. And good for both lefty and right-handed hitters in the last few years. A little better for right-handed hitters. But the lefties will not complain at all hitting here either. And there are a lot of left-handed bats in this lineup tonight for the Phillies. Cesar Hernandez taking a strike. They have Galvis, who's a switch hitter. Hernandez is a switch hitter. Blanco's a switch hitter. And then Brown, Ashe, Howard, and Herrera, all left-handed hitters. So that would account for 7 of the spots in this lineup that will be hitting left-handed against Carnes. Runner takes off. The pitch is foul.
Well, the one thing that will afford him is an opportunity to get in a good rhythm. You know, with the arm side fastball down and away, working some pitches in, up in the zone. You know, the curveball, of course, the changeup that, you know, Nathan Carnes likes to feature against the left-handed hitter.
I like the way you're thinking. Positive.
And that's the way you have to look at it. You know, got no chance.
That pitch is down. Well, here's just a little breakout on Carnes this year. When he's pitching with 4 or 5 days rest, his earned run average is 3.5. And when he's pitching with 6 or more days, his earned run average is over 6.5. So that gives you an idea. You'd like to keep him on a regular schedule.
And I think it has to do with, you know, the Rays are obviously cautious with younger starters. He got thrust right in because of injury. He's game 2 of the season starter. And as the first half went on, he gained more and more confidence, gained the confidence of his manager, and started to pitch a little bit deeper into games. So at that inning total up over 100 already.
And he gets a strikeout on the fastball. Mid-90s up with that fastball to strike out Hernandez.
Good strong fastball by Nathan Carnes. 1 out away from getting out of this inning. And let's take a look at the Rays defense, brought to you by BMW. In the outfield left to right, Jaso, Kiermaier, and Souza Jr. Across the infield third to first, Longoria, Elmore, Forsythe, and Loney, with Rivera behind the plate.
Well, here's an interesting bat in the middle of this Philly lineup. You talked about him in the pregame. Ryan Howard. He's not giving the Phillies the power that he once did, but who could duplicate those numbers? There's a liner into center, going to be caught by Kiermaier. Leadoff walk does not hurt. He's left at first. 2 an inning, no score. Go to the second inning in Philadelphia. The GMC big matchup. Here's a breakout on the right-hander Aaron Nola. As you mentioned, BA, the 7th overall pick in the 2014 Major League Draft. And all kinds of collegiate honors at Louisiana State.
Well, and pitching in the SEC for LSU will get you prepared for raucous environments. And that's what he'll have here, pitching at home with Philadelphia.
Now, they average over 10,000 a game at Louisiana State.
Then they're not quiet. Think about some of their Saturday night football games, what those fans are like.
Pitch is wide to Forsythe, 2-0. Nola, you see there, from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, just a few miles short of matching up his surname with his birthplace. Had he been born in New Orleans, his surname would have been the initials. New Orleans, Louisiana, Nola, but Baton Rouge. If you can't be born in New Orleans, Baton Rouge will do. That's going to be a strike, and the count is 2-2. Kiermaier next, and then Elmore. Down to third, picked up by Blanco, and the throw to first retires Forsythe. Logan drove in 2 of the 3 runs for the Rays last night. Hit that one sharply, but out third to first.
Yeah, did a nice job of staying back on that curveball, but hit it right at Blanco. And interesting, Blanco getting the start tonight in place of Maikel Franco. You remember that play last night that he made, 5th, 6th inning, a nice spinning, strong arm throw over to first base to make the out. Then later in the game, he had that ball sail on him. I think it was off Evan Longoria. Ground ball that Evan hit him, sailed for an error, and come to find out, he had tweaked his elbow. Try to make a play here.
Yeah, Kiermaier's the second out as Blanco's out there from third to catch that one in foul territory.
Apparently he had tweaked his elbow at some point during the game, and they believe that it was on this play, and that's when he really showed that arm off. We actually talked about the fact that ball came out of his hand like a cannon. Later was removed after the throwing error, and obviously having a little bit of an elbow issue. May not see him the rest of this series out in the field.
2 outs. Jake Elmore in the batter's box. Pitch is a strike. Jake getting the start at shortstop. Beckham and Elmore dividing time in the absence of Asdrubal Cabrera. Into short center, right center, and that ball will not be caught. Brown coming in front of Herrera, got his glove on it, but could not catch it. And that's going to go as a base hit.
And low murmuring boos for Dominic Brown. First of all, he's never lived up to the hype that he came to Philadelphia with. And these fans all here seemingly in support of Aaron Nola, knowing that could have been the third out, are kind of letting Brown have a little bit.
Yeah, the fans here in Philadelphia, as we all know, they are a unique group. And Nola got a great hand when he was announced and when he went to the mound. And when he gave up that double to Jaso, you're already starting to hear people go, what's going on? He settled in and became a favorite again with a couple of strikeouts, and then he left Jaso at second base. Strike one to Rivera. Runner at first, 2 gone. So you're right, there were some murmurs when Elmore's little popper into right center deflected off Brown's glove. They're very demanding.
They are very demanding, and I think it also has to do with the fact that Dominic Brown was going to be a big difference maker for this franchise, and it has not worked out that way as of yet. So there's some frustration with the lack of production with Brown too.
And a strikeout of Rene Rivera with a fastball. Rays leave a man at first. No score through an inning and a half. you by Toyota. Let's go places. By Morgan Auto Group. And by the Florida Department of Transportation. Rays in Philadelphia tonight. Nathan Carnes gave up an opening walk and then retired the Philly hitters in order in the first. Now Cody Ashe will open the bottom of the second with Dominic Brown due to hit next, and then Andres Blanco. Pitch upstairs. Fastball misses. 2-0. Ashe at 244. He got off to a slow start this year, and over his last 20 to 25 games has started to push the 300 mark in that stretch to get his average up over 240.
Well, you know, we talked about the offensive struggles of this Philadelphia Philly team, and I know it's a short sample size, but since the All-Star break, they're tied for the major league lead in runs scored. And they're tied with the Royals and the Angels.
So they've won 4 in a row.
Yeah, and they have. They're owning Florida right now.
Yep, they swept the Marlins, and they took the first game from the Rays last night. There's Pete McCannon, their interim manager, after Ryan Sandberg resigned on the 26th of June.
That's something that you do not see very often.
And a leadoff walk here for the second straight inning. Ashe heads to first. It's Christmas in July, and Sunday, July 26th, the Rays celebrate when they host the Orioles. Youngsters 14 and under receive a Rays surprise Christmas present. For tickets, call 888-FAN-RAYS or visit RaysBaseball.com. Rays up.
Well, listen, no better time than now. Dominic Brown stepping in to hit here. Now, listen, Dwayne, I was passed a note.
Yeah.
And I told her yes.
Okay. Nope.
But then I was passed another note.
I got you.
And
Good.
This note, how about this? 4 years ago, Baseball America's #1 prospect in Major League Baseball was Dominic Brown. Guess who number 2 was?
I'm lost. Tell me.
Mike Trout. That's why you hear the boos. And by the way, the first note was Joe. So
yes,
calm it down there.
It was. Let's calm it down immediately. There's a strike, a breaking ball to Brown. Yeah. I actually like you as a partner, so we'll calm that first one way down. It's a matter of survival.
There's no question.
1 ball and 1 strike here to Dominic Brown. Two balls and a strike. But I'll tell you, you know, the other thing about Philly, the great Mike Schmidt, I mean, you don't get any better than he was, but the first year or two here, boy, he struck out, struggled to hit 200. It wasn't easy for him in the early part of his career here. And I mean, you just don't get much better than Mike Schmidt.
Well, let's put that into a little bit of perspective. Last night, Albert Pujols hit 2 home runs.
Yep.
And the second one, he was able to surpass Mike Schmidt. So that's the damage that he ended up doing in his career.
Yep, there he is. He hit 196 his rookie year. Hit 18 home runs. You can see that power and a lot of strikeouts. Became one of the greatest players of all time. Great power and great at third. Brown fouls it, holding the count at 2-2.
You know, immediately when you read those numbers, and it comes to mind Souza Jr. You know, that batting average now below 210. He does have the 15 home runs, a ton of punch outs.
Yep.
Same kind of thing.
Yep.
Be nice to have him turn into a Mike Schmidt type.
That's a foul ball. Well, I'll tell you this, the other similarity, you know, you get yourself and those players into trouble when you start to compare them like that. You know, Mike Schmidt, the ball would just rocket off his bat. And we've seen shots by Souza the same way. When he hits them, when he tees them up, boy, it's something to behold.
Well, he's that guy that has the different sound. You know, you may have one every 3 or 4 teams that have that kind of a sound of baseball off of a wooden bat, and he's a guy that has, you know, when he's taking batting practice. You don't even have to be watching, and you're like, oh, that's Souza Jr., because he's the only guy in that Rays lineup that can create that sound.
Steven Souza Jr. just back off the disabled list. And in the lineup tonight, another foul ball. So that extends this at bat to 8 pitches. Number 9 about to be made. Center, that's going to fall. He's going to head to third. Good throw's going to get him. He is out at third base. Kevin Kiermaier throws him out at third. Oh, he got to that ball quickly, and that's the way he plays center field.
You know, Dwayne, that's the key. That's the key. Kevin Kiermaier gets to the ball. Look at him, all out, and knows that he's got a chance at a play. Picks up that second short hop, and he's got a very strong arm, and obvious, very accurate too. That right on the money there. One hop to Evan, and then the tag. That was outstanding work by the Rays center fielder.
One away with a runner at first. Here's Andres Blanco. High toss over to first. Back in is Brown. Kiermaier with 9 assists now in the outfield. Elise Martin with 12 with Texas. There's a strike to Blanco. Another switch hitter in this lineup. He's hitting .282. Oh, 2.
Well, it's starting to find the feel for that curveball too. Early on, first 3 or 4 of them, just that ball kind of squirting out, staying up in the zone. The last few, he's been able to get down where he wants them. That's a big pitch for Nathan Carnes. It plays so well off of his 4-seam fastball.
It was wide with the fastball there. It's 1-2. Ted Barrett behind the plate, and he'll call strikes. He's not afraid to do that. He's a big umpire. You can see he's about 6'4" or so, and that low strike, pitchers may not always get that one, but they'll get a pitch in the upper part of the strike zone from him, and he will call his fair share of strikes.
You know, he's one of the guys I can remember having pitched with him behind the plate, and always enjoyed him behind the plate, because you're right, he calls strikes. He tries to push the game along. He's not giving you a ton off the plate, but if it's close and you've been hitting your spots, he looks to call strikes rather than looking to, oh boy.
And that one just got Blanco. So a hit batter That will push Brown up to second base.
Just a little bit too close down in the zone, and you know, you're coming with something with some good velocity to it. He yanked that fastball, and you could see Blanco kind of turn in to that pitch a little bit. Instead of trying to, you know, sweep his way out, he just kind of turns the body, throws the knee out, and takes one for the team.
Well, the Rays have not been scoring runs. And BA, I know as a pitcher, you've had to have gone through stretches where your offense was not scoring a lot of runs, and there's a tendency to put a little more pressure on yourself out there if you're aware of that. How do you deal with that?
You really have to fight against that. You have to, you know, control the controllables and all that you can do. That's really the mindset you have to take. You can't, it's hard enough to pitch and be successful, a lot harder if you're also worried about what your offense is or is not doing. And so you really, you know, understand that maybe they haven't been scoring for me, but really what you say to yourself is, I'm going to go out and do my job. And when it does cross your mind, you stick to everything positive. You say, well, tonight's the night they're breaking out of it. Tonight's the night they're gonna get me some runs. I'm going to do my job and hold them down, and we're going to win this game. That's really the only chance that you have, because if you're out there worried about these hitters and you're worried about, ooh, man, they're not scoring, and you're trying to be too perfect,
yeah,
you really, really will put yourself in a bad spot.
Yeah, tough enough to worry about one lineup, much less two.
Yeah.
So you take care of your own business and hope that things work out.
And you can't pitch that way. You know, you can't pitch to, you know, not giving up runs and trying to be perfect on every single pitch. You know, that's how you end up 2-0, 3-1.
Carnes up on Rupp, the Philly catcher. It's 0-2. You know, here's a situation, 2 men on with 1 out. You're in the National League, so you've got a catcher hitting here with a pitcher due next. So this guy becomes a very big hitter in this inning. Thinking if you can get past him, then you're a big step closer to getting out of the inning. And a cut and a miss on the curve. So he strikes out Cameron Rupp. 2 outs, 2 men on, and it'll be the pitcher, Aaron Nola, coming up.
The other thing that he could do is, being in that 0-2 count, you know, a big spot, you can also make that strike zone big, and that's what he did there. Took that ball well below the zone, gets the swing and a miss, and now you're retiring the pitcher, one more hitter away from getting out of here.
So Nola making his major league debut, his first big league at bat right here. And it's a strike. He takes a fastball. Upstairs. Walk and a hit batter in the inning. A man caught trying to go to third. Strikeout of Rupp, and here's strike 2 to Nola. 1-2. Ooh, he just missed there. You could see Carnes thinking maybe that was a strike.
And guess where that, you know, that pitch was? What you talked about. The low strike sometimes can be a coin flip with Ted Barrett.
Yeah, and it's tough to get that strike. It's a strike, but it's tough to get that one with the big umpire behind the plate. Swing and a miss. Fastball up. He swings through it. Phillies will leave 2 men on. It's a 29 pitch inning for Carnes. He was helped out by Kevin Kiermaier.
Head to the third inning prior to today's game here between the Rays and the Phillies. Rays All-Star Chris Archer met with about 100 parents and kids from the Philadelphia RBI program. Archer also met with kids when he was in Cleveland the last road trip prior to the All-Star break, and then coming out of the break in Toronto as well. Has done the same in Tampa. Talked to them about being your own person, making wise choices, even if it's not the popular choice, and staying true to yourself. The kids and the parents had a great time today listening to Chris Archer, who has devoted a lot of his time, guys, to that RBI program. Back to you.
Yeah, it's a great program for the community and for the game. And great to see Chris Archer continuing to be involved, particularly with the youngsters. Nathan Carnes goes after the first pitch, lifts it deep into left. Ashe to the wall, and it's gone. Home run, Nathan Carnes. That's the first hit for a Rays pitcher this year. His first home run, and the Rays lead 1-0.
Take the offense into your own hands.
Don't worry about the offense while you're on the mound.
Right.
Take care of it when you're in the batter's box, and that's exactly what Carnes just did.
How about that? Looking for that fastball. He gets it. Boy, did he get into that. Pretty.
That's the first hit the Rays pitchers have had since Alex Cobb doubled in St. Louis last July the 23rd. So 2 days short of a calendar year between the double by Cobb and the home run by Carnes. John Jaso up here ahead in the count, 2-0. Jaso doubled his first time. 2 of the 3 hits for the Rays for extra bases in the early part of this game. Three and one.
Well, you got to believe that home run rattles Aaron Nola just a little bit. Pitcher leading off the inning, and all of a sudden you're down 1-0.
There's a strike. Well, interestingly enough, the bottom of the second ended with Carnes striking out Nola with a fastball up. Well, Nola started the third on the first pitch, a fastball to Carnes, and he lifted it out of here. Jaso is out first unassisted. Howard takes care of that.
Well, he does come back to retire John Jaso, and now if you're Nathan Carnes, you got to win this game. You've got to pick up the win on the day that you hit the home run.
Hey guys, there was some impressive batting practice taken by Carnes in Toronto. They hit pitchers BP. Carnes hit a number of home runs and 3 consecutive. Nobody else hit more than 2. So he was the leader coming into the clubhouse of who was going to get a hit. I don't know if he was going to go deep, but 3 in a row in Toronto, guys.
Well, he's the actual leader going into the clubhouse now, hitting 1 under game conditions, and he gives the Rays the lead.
And you know what's funny about that is when they were taking batting practice in Toronto, I remember looking down and watching some of those balls get into the stands and thinking I couldn't recognize the hitter. And I'm saying, who is him? Like, it kind of looks like Carnes, but why would he be hitting right now? Not even putting it together that Philadelphia is coming next. Yep. And then later that day, oh, by the way, a couple of these guys took BP, and I'm like, oh, that was Nathan. Makes perfect sense. And he was launching in Toronto.
Well, he launched here. So the Rays break out in front. Popped up, foul by Souza Jr. We're up to the screen, and it's out of play. Well, Carnes, as you know, appeared in 3 games in the National League with Washington and was 0 for 3 over there at the plate. And a cut to miss on the breaking ball. Souza out on strikes. That's 110 strikeouts for Souza this year. And he's out number 2 in the 3rd.
Boy, how about the placement? You know, we talk about Nola's stuff, but how about the location? 0-2, he takes that pitch down and off the plate. Tough for any hitter to hold up on.
One ball, no strikes. One and one to count to Longoria now. Roll down to 3rd. Blanco. That's close at first. And Longoria is out number 3. Rays get a run on the home run by Nathan Carnes. His first hit is a home run. And the Rays lead 1-0. Taking the offense into his own hands has given the Rays a 1-0 lead. As we go to the bottom of the 3rd, it's now time for you to tweet your strongest fan photo. Use hashtag #SSDataStrongFan, and you just might see yourself in an upcoming broadcast brought to you by T-Mobile.
And did you notice after that last throwdown, Nathan Carnes still huffing and puffing. He was late getting out to the mound. You see these deep breaths, one after the other.
Take all the time you need right here. Top of the order. And the first pitch too high with a breaking ball to Herrera. 3 strikeouts, 2 walks, a hit batter, and 1 hit given up. There's a strike, another breaking ball, and it's 1-1. A ball, 2 strikes. Galvis will be next, then Hernandez, top side of the Philadelphia lineup. But Carnes Had an extended second inning, 29 pitches, then hit the home run on the first pitch of the third inning. So he's got some reasons to be huffing and puffing out there. Fly ball center field. Kiermaier makes the catch. He got some help from Kiermaier on that assist in the second inning, cutting down Ashe, trying to go first to third on the base hit by Brown.
Well, Kevin Kiermaier always so active out of the batter's box, in center field, backing plays up. Strong arm. You know, we've seen him a couple of times this year airmail throws over the cutoff man's head that have cost the Rays extra bases. The most recent one, maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and he has not done that since. He has been so much better with his throws, keeping them down and accurate. And even the one that he was able to peg here last half inning, that was a one hopper right into Evan Longoria, taking the air out of those throws and letting them get there on a straight line.
He's behind Galvis, 2-0. Galvis hit a drive back to the wall in right field in the first that Souza got back there and caught. 2-1. Three balls and a strike.
This is a big inning here for Nathan Carnes. The one thing that has plagued the Rays pitching staff on this trip has been when they've gone out and scored, they've immediately allowed the opposition to come back and score.
Shot to right field. Souza Jr. looking up, and this one is off the wall. Could be a play at second. It's going to be cut off, and he's in there without a play, as it turns out. Galvis made a bid for another one. It doubles high off the wall.
He's like, those are my two best bowls. The first one had a lot of air underneath it, really tall out there in right center field, and was caught. This one more on a line. He hit this ball extremely hard and still ends up a few feet short.
When the ball came back to Souza in a hurry, and for just a beat or two there, it appeared there might be a play at second, but Galvis made it in with his ninth double. Here's Hernandez, and that pitch missed a little bit down. Looked like a pretty good pitch, but again in that area where it's going to be a toss-up as to whether you're going to get a strike down there. There's a fastball in. Strike, 1-1. Rays starting this day 5 games out of first place. And that is as far back as they've been all year. That's a high, 5 games out of first.
And then you start to look at the loss column, and you cannot afford many more. You're 7 back in the loss column. You know, that number grows to 9 or 10, you're in big trouble. I don't care what the games back say, because you know that those are games that you cannot make up. And right now, yeah, and that's, you know, once again, this is a snapshot of the division. 4 games back, second place, 5 game back, 4th place. So you can make a big move right now. New York is playing Baltimore. So you win ball games, you're going to gain on somebody.
Yeah, Yankees have a 2-0 lead at home on the Orioles, with Baltimore batting in the top of the 3rd right now. Foul ball evens the count on Hernandez at 2-2.
I know that's something that you read the New York papers. That's been something that they've been trumpeting with the day off yesterday. Coming in, they're going to get an opportunity to play the Orioles and start to try and distance themselves. And then the Orioles, of course, this weekend will be at the Trop.
It's Galvis out there at second base. and he misses with the curveball, and it's 3-2.
Boy, had the right idea, the right pitch, and the right height in the strike zone, but that was just a few inches off. Well, the only thing you wonder, does he come back with another one right here?
Line foul. Foul the fastball up the left side. Hernandez starting the night hitting .280. He's been very hot for about 3 weeks plus now, up around 350 in that stretch. Ground ball right side. Forsythe makes the play. Galvis advances to third. He'll be there with 2 outs, and Ryan Howard's going to be the hitter.
Well, one thing to keep in mind here, Ryan Howard, dangerous hitter. You get the feeling that if this bat gets extended, he's going to see some curveballs. Rene Rivera, you've got to be on top of your game. Nathan Karns leads Major League Baseball in wild pitches.
And you can see the Toyota trend when it comes to the all-time Philly rankings. Second in home runs. There's a guy with a statue outside who's first, that we talked about earlier. 350 home runs, and he's among the leaders in all of the important offensive categories. There's a good breaking ball down and in, strike one.
And it's exactly what we're talking about. That ball very easily could have been another wild pitch. Great job by Rivera to block that, on top of the fact that you get a strike out of it.
One and one. Yeah, you're so right, because you want to make sure that it's a good curveball. And his curveball is so good that Rivera has to be ready to block it.
Well, I would say that
a fastball 1-2.
With his, major league leading wild pitches, every single one of them has come on the curveball, because he really, really yanks that pitch down into the zone, and a lot of those chase curveballs end up in the dirt. Easy to get away from a catcher. Run around third base. Got to be ready.
The 1-2, and it's covered up by Rivera. Well, you go into full block mode, and that's what Rivera just did there.
You've got to anticipate. Okay, breaking ball, we know it could be in the dirt. Look at Rivera. Just smother, keep it close. That's textbook.
Tapper foul. Well, 5 pitches in, 4 of them breaking balls. The count 2-2 to Howard. Hopped him up, foul. Longoria's after it, and he's got it. Got the fastball in on him, and Longoria made a fine play to track that one down by the tarp in foul territory. Man left at third through 3, 1-0 Rays. What a star by that one. the 4th inning. All-Star game may be over, but we'd still like to take a moment and congratulate Dana, a big Rays fan, for winning the fantastic All-Star photo contest. Dana won a trip for her and 3 friends to the All-Star game. Check out hashtag Fantastic All-Star for more details of Dana's All-Star experience. Way to go. James Loney's going to open the 4th. Loney, then Logan Forsythe and Kevin Kiermaier due up against Aaron Nola, the rookie right-hander, making his major league debut. Boy, the wind is starting to pick up here, blowing out toward right field and toward the corner. We may get a little weather here.
See it coming down right now.
1 strike the count to Loney. Fans are starting to head for cover. You can see how the wind is picked up, reflected in the movement of the flags. A little tapper to first. Howard will make the play unassisted. 1 away. So we have some rain and some wind blowing in here. There was a point where it was raining in just part of the ballpark, but the wind has quickly moved this front to encompass the entire ballpark here.
Whatever's coming through here is coming through quickly.
Forsythe fouls it back. Strike one.
And if you can hang on for a few minutes, it's gonna blow right by.
Looks like standing by the railroad tracks and that locomotive comes right by. It's there and then it was gone. 2 strikes the count to Forsythe.
I love the steady center field camera right now. Getting nauseous trying to tell what he's thrown here. See, look at that, right through, gone. Calm.
Down to short. Galvis with a nice pick. Boy, that's the 2nd time that Forsythe has hit the ball hard, and he's 0 for 2.
Yeah, he's found both of the infielders on the left side of the Philadelphia defense. This one sharply hit. Nice job by Galvis. Backhand turn, accurate throw.
Now Kevin Kiermaier pitches down. 1-0. Boy, when a wind comes through like that, hitter, pitcher, hitter, is it advantage to the pitcher, advantage to the hitter?
Well, I would say that it would, if you can pick your spots correctly, it'd be advantage to the pitcher.
Line drive into left, and it almost took off on Ashe as he leaps to make the catch. Tough for everybody, it seems.
Yes.
1-0 Rays. Sports brought to you by Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% on car insurance. By Checkers. Mix and match our famous Big Buford and Big Chicken Deluxe. And by Pixels in theaters July 24th. In the bottom of the fourth inning, Cody Ashe had to make a leaping catch on the liner by Kiermaier to end the top of the fourth. Will begin the bottom of the inning. Shift is on for Ashe. And he's out in front of a curveball, strike one.
Well, right there you see Logan Forsythe not quite that deep. Every hitter's different, depends on running speed out of the box. But regardless, there's solidifying that right side.
It's a hot shot foul. She obviously knows the ballpark. Played the carom extremely well.
And there's a number of different angles down there, impediments.
And a nice defensive play. One ball, two strikes. Just a little bit of that one. Count remains at 1-2. Nathan Carnes making his 19th start. Coming in 4-5 with a .363 earned run average. Oh, a long one to right. Down the line, and it's foul. Boy, that wind is still with us, and that certainly didn't hurt. Because off the bat, it appeared it had a chance to stay fair, but it hooked foul.
You know, that's a perfect. Yeah, they talk about a hitter will let you know. As soon as that ball was struck, I went down to Cody Ashe, and he took like 2 or 3 hard steps, and then you could see him immediately pull up because he knew that ball had no chance of staying fair.
And strike 3 called on a fastball. That starts the bottom of the fourth inning. One away. Don't miss tomorrow's Wednesday night showdown. Will be Wednesday afternoon, actually. Presented by Mazda. Braves will have Jake Odorizzi against lefty Adam Morgan tomorrow. Ground ball down to first. Loney takes care of Brown. Here are a few boos in the crowd. He got a base hit his first time up. The first out he makes tonight. He draws a few boos.
Maybe could use a change of scenery
Tough
at this
town.
point. It is a tough town. You play here, you don't play here. You're a visitor. You're in the booth. You're in the bullpen. You're in the stands. They're not a big fan of outsiders.
Here's Falco. 1-0. Well, the Rays found out all about that in the 08 World Series. They not only didn't like the Rays, they didn't like their family, didn't like their friends, didn't like their kids. 1-1 the count to Blanco. Base is empty with 2 gone. Kind of sets the tone.
Boy, does it ever. Hey, I know what I'm going to wear to the game tonight.
Let's ground ball down to Loney. Blanco's out of there. 1, 2, 3, we go. On to the 5th from the city of brotherly love. the Geico great moment in Rays history. October 23rd, 2008. James Shields pitched 5 2/3 of shutout baseball. Turned the ball over to Dan Wheeler, and then rookie David Price for the final 2 1/3. The Rays win Game 2 of the World Series at the Trop.
Hard to believe that was 7 seasons ago.
Sure is. It really is. You see those youthful faces of Shields and Wheeler and Price.
Time flies.
They all look the same, even today.
Yep.
Jake Elmore takes the first pitch, low and away. 1 ball, no strikes. That's a strike. Elmore had a base hit his first time up. Rays have 3 hits on the night so far, and all 3 came the first time through the order. There's a bouncing ball charged by Galvis at short. He makes the play. Jaso had a double in the first. Elmore single in the second, and Carnes opened the third by hitting a home run. Since then, 7 in a row retired by Aaron Nola. And here is Rene Rivera. Rivera struck out swinging his first time, takes a pitch down. 1-0. Two and 0.
I heard it's like all-time records now. It's still like 170.
2 balls and a strike. Nola just 22 years old. There's Carnes on deck. 2-2. Four strikeouts for Nola. 2 on the fastball and 2 on the breaking stuff. And now that wind has kicked up the dirt, something in Rivera's eye. Phillies won the opening game last night 5-3. Rays lead 1-0 in the 5th inning tonight. Liner into left. There's a base hit. So Rivera is aboard with 1 out in the 5th. Reminder, in the game tonight and all season, Tires Plus donates $100 to the Pediatric Cancer Foundation for every Tampa Bay Rays home run televised on Sun Sports. So Carnes hit the home run in the 3rd. His first hit, a home run.
That ball was absolutely blasted. The unfortunate thing is, with the base hit by Rivera, does that take the bat out of Nathan Carnes' hand for a bunt?
Same thing. How can they have him bunt when he shows that kind of power?
You don't. You let him swing away. Oh, no.
Pitch down and away.
I blame Rene.
Yeah, either get an extra base hit or don't even bother. Take the bat out of Nathan Carnes' hands.
Well, here's the thing. They're worried about getting Rivera into scoring position. He already is with Carnes at the plate.
And that's a very good point you make. There's a strike. Boy, Blanco came so close coming in from 3rd. He could almost exchange pleasantries with Carnes if he wished.
He just yelled down and told Nathan Carnes how much money he had in his wallet. Counted it for him. Well, that's where you pull that bat back. And
there's a bunt foul. 1-2.
You want to see a guy just flat hit the deck, square around like that, and as he starts crashing in, pull that bat back like you may swing. Because that, if the guy wants to crash down on you that hard, especially with Ryan Howard, if he's going to start peeling down too.
And a curveball. That's in there. Strike 3 call. 5th strikeout for Nola.
Now with the 2 strikes, the Rays are going to take that bunt off, and Nola's going to drop in that curveball. That's a tough pitch from that arm angle with that kind of depth. Tough enough for an everyday player, let alone a pitcher, to be able to take a quality hack at that.
John Jaso. Breaking ball away. Jaso doubled on a fastball in the first. Went 3-2 and grounded out to first in the 3rd inning. And a big cut right there out in front.
With the changeup, just doesn't get there.
That takes the count to a ball, 2 strikes. In a 1-0 game here in Philly, up in New York. 2-0 Yankees in the bottom of the 4th. New York leading the Orioles. Another foul ball on that pitch. That pitch way down and in. He got enough of it to foul it. Liner into right. That's going to fall for a base hit. Rivera advances to second on the 2nd hit of the night for John Jaso. 2 men on with 2 men out.
Well, this ball up but not in far enough. That needed to be closer to John Jaso. This allows him to pull the hands in on that swing and get that ball out into right field. Extend this inning and give the Rays a chance now.
Well, now if Steven Souza could square one up. Well, Souza so far 0 for 2, but a couple of men on, and he's always up there presenting that possibility. 15 home runs on the year.
Well, you want to see him aggressive here in this at bat, and you're right. This would be, well, it's a huge chance.
Fastball is high. He took 3 fastballs and was called out on strikes in the first. Got down 0-2 and struck out swinging on the breaking ball in the 3rd. And a couple misses now by Nola. 2-0. Out of play. Dropping into the seats down the right field side. Souza looking over that bat. And he's going to elect to have a new one brought out.
Different handles. He went fluorescent yellow. Now we've got speckled blue. It matches the uni a little bit better. But I got to tell you, I like the fluorescent yellow. Matches that elbow guard.
Sure does. You have to like that from a decorating point of view. That's a strike, and it's 2-2.
Well, now let's put it to use. Let it fly.
Getting it all to come together. 2 men on, 2 men out. 2-2 the count. And he's out on strikes on the breaking pitch. Souza, strikeout number 6 for Nola. The Rays lead 1-0 Rays. Bottom half of inning 5 coming up in Philadelphia. The Rays lead on the strength of the Nathan Carnes home run. Rays pleased to announce a very special program for our military. Now through the end of this season, active duty and retired or honorably discharged veterans can receive a Rays Honor Pass, entitling them to 2 free tickets to any Rays regular season home game. Visit RaysBaseball.com/Honor Pass for more information, and we'll see you at the Trop. Cameron Rupp leads off the bottom of the 5th. The pitch is down. Rupp, then Nola do, followed by the top of the order, Herrera. Line drive into center, starts to sink. Kiermaier made the catch. Kiermaier charging that sinking line drive, comes up with that catch, and Rupp can't believe it. Standing on first, he says, "You've got to be kidding me."
Well, I mean, this aggressive play by Kevin Kiermaier, because if this ball gets by him, extra bases big time. But look at him, just get a gauge of it, get that ball down to the grass, or get the glove down to the grass and pick that ball right off of it. That ball hung up just enough that Kiermaier made a fantastic play.
Nola taking the pitch in there for a strike. Well, that's part of the Heart and Hustle. Kiermaier winning that Heart and Hustle award. And that's the way he plays center field. That's the way he plays the game all around. That was a great play.
Well, he keeps his eyes right on that baseball. Those are tough plays when you're diving directly in towards the infield. To the side.
Now a base hit into center by Nola. An 0-2 pitch, and Nola serves it into center for his first big league hit.
Well, I've got no problem if I'm Nathan Carnes exchanging hits when mine was a home run. Right back up the middle, Nola goes.
Third hit for the Phillies tonight, and Nola is aboard. Cedeno and Geltz up in the Rays bullpen.
And why wouldn't you?
Well, Herrera, the top of the order here with a man on and one out. So Herrera represents the beginning of the third time through the order.
Well, that's typically when you see this move being made. You certainly hope that Nathan Carnes. Listen, Philly hasn't scored off him. They have 3 hits. You'd like to see him get the opportunity to at least pitch through the 5th. We'll see.
He walked Herrera in the first. Herrera went out to center to Kiermaier in the third. That's a strike. 1-1. Even Herrera's takes are aggressive.
Very active in the batter's box. Listen, he's always looking to swing, and if he's not going to, he's gonna be close to unleashing.
Tap, that's going to be fair. Quick down to second. They get the out there. Back to first, and the Rays get a double play. Boy, great decision by Loney. And the Rays turn that into a double play.
He knows the pitcher's running. He knows it's Aaron Nola. He knows he can get him. That's exactly what he does.
Through 5, 1-0 Rays. Making his major league debut through 5 innings, has 6 strikeouts, giving up the 1 run. And Nathan Carnes, a couple of extended innings, but boy, he's made some good pitches when he had to. And 5 shutout innings for Carnes, and he's provided the only offense in this game by either team. A home run for Carnes on the first pitch he saw in the third. His first hit turns out to be a home run, and the Rays lead 1-0 as we go to the 6th. And Evan Longoria will lead off against Aaron Nola. Ground ball right side. Nola's going to have to cover, and Ryan Howard with the toss retires Longoria.
Well, they had him defense perfectly, had the shift on, and Nola jams him, gets in with the fastball, and all Evan could do was try to push that ball to the right side, but it was right to Ryan Howard.
You know, the Rays have their 5 hits tonight. They've come from the top and the bottom of the order, and the middle part, the 3, 4, and 5 hitters for the Rays in this series, 0 for 18, 0 for 7 tonight. And here's James Loney trying to address that issue now. Up the left side. That ball is going to be foul. Boy, a potential for extra bases if it's fair, but a foul ball. Well, you got to give Loney a lot of credit for starting that double play to get out of the fifth. Made a nice quick pickup and good throw. Had a great angle down to second.
You know, and I think he only makes that throw because of who's running, and that's Aaron Nola, the pitcher. Because it was, you know, he had to come in on that ball. The coming in created the angle, but a normal base runner is going to beat that. Nola went in, didn't slide, stayed up, kind of was slowing up as he got to second base, but knowing that ahead of time, he aggressively doesn't even look, just picks it up and throws, and they're able to get Nola going and standing up, and then of course plenty of time to complete the double play.
1 ball, 2 strikes.
Yeah, how about, we were talking about this in between innings. Let's say let's say he takes you out at first, and now you got a runner in scoring position with 2 outs and Freddie Galvis coming to the plate, who's hit 2 balls hard off Nathan Carnes, and he were to get pulled there, 4 2/3 of scoreless baseball.
Yeah, because that bullpen was up and ready.
Yes.
So there's a situation where Carnes happy to get out of that inning, but boy, if he's got a new best friend, it should be Loney to get that double play and get Carnes the 5 innings in, because there's a very good chance that he's out of there because of the way Galvis had swung the bat against him. Shortstop picked by Galvis with time, and Loney grounds out for the 3rd time tonight. Nice play by Galvis.
He's made a number of those here tonight. Nice little backhand throw over. Loney trying to get that ball into left field, making a bid, and no chance.
Here's Logan Forsythe. The Rays, since the home run by Carnes, have gone 2 for 13 against Nola. Forsythe takes the breaking pitch inside. Two and 1. How about this on Forsythe? There's no other major league second baseman can match Forsythe's current numbers when you consider batting average coming into this game at 280, home runs 9, and RBIs 38. How about that?
How about that? And here it was almost going to be a platoon type situation. And not only has he put those numbers up offensively, but how about his work defensively?
Yeah, he's been great at second. He's played any number of positions, and he's been up and down in this order, and now he draws the walk with 2 outs here in the 6th inning to get Kevin Kiermaier up there with a chance to see if he can do something with 2 outs. First walk given up by Nola. Kiermaier's had an outstanding game defensively again for the Rays tonight. Forsythe back in at first. Kiermaier had a double and a triple and 2 runs scored last night. That's ball 1, 1-0. 2 balls, no strikes.
You see Cameron Rupp going out there to talk a little bit with his young pitcher, young starter Aaron Nola. Doesn't walk too many guys. Has done just that with Logan Forsythe. Now has fallen behind 2-0 to Kiermaier, and now we're going to get a visit from the dugout.
Bob McClure, the pitching coach, heads out there. Nola working into the 6th. You see he has 87 pitches right now. In the minor leagues this year, he did pitch one game that went 8 innings, and he's had quite a few 7+.
And he's able to get deep into games because of that command. Command leads to efficiency, and efficiency leads to manageable pitch counts.
Kiermaier up in the count, 2-0. Forsythe has drawn the 2-out walk. And again a move to first. Logan with the hand on the back side of the bag. Where runs continue to be at a premium here for the Rays, especially on this road trip. Liner into right. Brown will make the catch, and the Rays are finished in the 6th. They leave 1-0 Tampa Bay. We go to the bottom half of the 6th inning. The Rays, with a run in the 3rd, have a 1-0 lead, and Nathan Carnes will depart this game after hitting a home run and giving the Rays 5 innings.
Well, what else could he have done? I mean, he went out, he threw 5 scoreless innings, a couple of walks, 4 strikeouts, hit a home run, the only run of the ball game. I mean, listen, you take matters into your own hands. That's what Nathan Carnes has done. And now we'll turn it over to the Rays bullpen, starting here with Steve Geltz on for the 45th time.
Geltz 1-4 with a .335. He pitched a 1-2-3 8th inning last night when he got Franco, Francoeur, and Ruff. He'll be facing Galvez to open the 6th inning. Freddie Galvez is 1 for 2. Then Hernandez and Howard scheduled to bat. Rays keep the bullpen busy. And here's Galvis. Strike one. Galvis can be aggressive, and he chased that pitch. Cedeno, the lefty, and Jepson, the right-hander, up. One ball, one strike.
Well, it's all hands on deck here. You're going to play matchups. You're going to do what you need to do to start winning ball games. Didn't have a good series in Toronto. Dropped a ball game last night to a team that you feel like coming in you should beat.
Well, the Rays were disappointed with the way last night's game played out, and Kevin Cash pretty upfront about that. He just said that was not a good performance. Not happy, obviously, with the outcome, but throughout the evening, it was not the kind of game that the Rays want to put on the field at any time, really.
Yeah, where's the intensity? Where's the enthusiasm? You're playing the worst team in baseball with the Philadelphia Phillies with the worst record, and they were lifeless, absolutely lifeless, and there is no excuse for that. You've got to win ball games. You're in the second half of a season.
Toward left center, and Kiermaier on the run is there, getting out of the way. Jaso, and a good thing is let Kiermaier take care of whatever he can take care of, and then abandon your position, and that's what Jaso did at the last moment. So wait, I lost you in the lights.
Yeah, well, wrong answer. Get out of there. And you're right, Jaso has not logged a whole lot of time out in left field, and you've got to concede that fly ball to Kiermaier each and every time, although Jaso was telling him, look, I had your back. Anything gets by you, I was there in a crouch position with my mane.
Now Hernandez is going to bunt, and he does so foul. That's a strike. So Geltz, the idea for him to face Galvis and then Hernandez, the lefty Cedeno up in the bullpen with a left-handed bat of Ryan Howard due next. And Howard has had a tough time against lefties this year. So Geltz getting ahead of Hernandez. So you figure Geltz would be in for two if things go to plan. And then Howard, who's hitting a little over 130 against lefties, would face Cedeno. Rays getting 5 from Carnes. Now Geltz. And back off the glove of Geltz, deflected to Forsythe, and he can't come up with it. Well, the Rays appeared to get a break there for a moment on that deflection, and Forsythe could not come up with that ball at second.
Yeah, I think
Hernandez reaches.
I think Herrera, he runs so well that Logan Forsythe, knowing this ball was deflected, is going to have to try to rush it. You see him pick his head up a little bit too soon. Watch the head come up right here. He's already looking at first base before that ball is secured, and that's what leads to the misplay. Not to mention that ball probably had a little bit of action on it as it came off the glove.
So an error charged on the play, and the Rays will go to the bullpen. of the 6th. 1 on, 1 out for the Phillies. Don't miss tomorrow afternoon showdown presented by Mazda. Our coverage begins at 12:30 tomorrow as Jake Odorizzi goes to the mound against lefty Adam Morgan. For interleague baseball tomorrow. Xavier Cedeno is on to match up against Ryan Howard. Howard hitting .132, 3 homers and 9 runs batted in against left-handed pitching. And Cedeno's on for the 37th time.
Well, it's all matchups from here on out, and this is the big one. You're playing those numbers, and they have a history. Well, a home run and 4 strikeouts, all or nothing.
Howard 0 for 2 tonight. First pitch inside. Howard with 16 home runs on the year. .93 strikeouts overall. He's had 68 at-bats against lefties, 25 strikeouts. The Rays have the shift in place for him.
Well, you're not going to play it quite as deep. You think about having the opportunity to turn a double play. You've got enough ground covered. Although Ryan Howard, with his strength, he hits a ground ball hard that's not right at somebody. He's got a chance to squeeze it through.
Cut and a miss. Kevin Jepson up in the bullpen. Cedeno worked the 7th inning last night. Gave up a hit. There was a caught stealing in that inning that helped the cause. 1-1 now to Howard. Another move to first. Galvis started with the fly ball into left center field, caught by Kiermaier. Bouncer foul, runs the count to 1-2. Hernandez reached on that ball that was deflected off the glove of Geltz to Forsythe, but in his haste to attempt to make a play, the ball got away from him. So Forsythe charged with his 5th error.
If I'm Xavier Cedeno right here, I'm going back to that 82, 83 mile an hour slider. I'd start that pitch outer third, run it off the plate, and take your swing and a miss, strike 3. You've got him set up for it, but make sure you get it out there.
Swing and a miss. He came back with a fastball and got it by him.
Either one. You know, the curveball, Ryan Howard opened up so quickly on that he told you that he was giving away the outside corner. And so whether you go with that little slider with the moving that way or you want to bury that fastball, you get it out there. He had already told you that he's giving up that part of the plate. That was a nice job and a big strikeout.
Here's Cody Ashe, the left fielder. He's walked and struck out tonight. And 10 of 40 against left-handed pitching on the year. Runner takes off, the pitch and the throw down in time. Boy, a great example of catch and throw right there by Rivera. And he cuts down Cesar Hernandez. 4th time he's been caught this year. Through 6, 1-0 Rays.
7th inning. You mentioned earlier about Kevin Kiermaier's Heart and Hustle Award. A lot of that hustle has resulted in 18 triples. And guys, on the all-time list since World War II, he is currently number 6. The guy that tops that list is currently a coach for the Philadelphia Phillies, Juan Samuel. Used to wear number 8. The gaps at Veterans Stadium weren't extraordinarily deep, but that guy would low fly around the bases and use line-to-line gap power, and he ended up with the most triples of anybody since World War II in his first 200 career games, guys.
Kiermaier with a couple of extra base hits last night. Now the 7th inning opens, and Jake Elmore with a little comebacker on the first pitch fastball from Luis Garcia. So he's out of there, pitcher first. Garcia taking over for Nola, the rookie right-hander, making his major league debut tonight. He gives way to Garcia on for the 45th time.
42 2/3, now 43 innings, 39 strikeouts. We got a nail biter back and forth. These bullpens looking to do a perfect job. That would lead to a Rays win, but it won't be easy.
Rene Rivera takes a strike. 6 innings for Nola. A run on the home run by Nathan Carnes. 5 hits allowed. Rivera missing a mid-90s fastball. It's 0-2. There's big Jake McGee up in the Rays bullpen.
That'd be a tough way to lose a ball game if you lose on a solo shot by an American League pitcher who had 1 career hit in the minor leagues.
Yeah, he was 1 for 20 in the minor leagues and picks up his first big league hit, a home run. A ball, 2 strikes, the count to Rene Rivera. Two and 2. Now David DeJesus has moved into the on-deck circle for the Rays. Right now, 1 out, bases empty. Good cut there by Rivera. The pitch at 96, fouled back. That's DeJesus on deck. A run, 5 hits, and an error for the Rays. No runs, 3 hits, no errors for Philadelphia. And the slider ends the at-bat for Rivera. 2 gone here in the 7th. Saturday, Casey Musgraves performs a free concert on the field after the Rays-Orioles game. She'll perform hits like Biscuits and Follow Your Arrow. For information and to purchase on-field wristbands, visit RaysBaseball.com/concerts or call 888-FAN-RAYS. Rays up. Well, now it's going to be Joey Butler instead of DeJesus, who had been out on deck. And there's a strike. Slider starting Butler. One and 1. Well, with 2 outs and the bases empty, Butler gets the call.
It's all matchups and situations. And both managers be tinkering a lot here the last couple of innings.
Butler fouling a fastball. Butler hitting .285 right now. He'd gone 5 for his last 46. Keeps the at bat going with that foul ball off the slider. The Red Sox have taken a 3-1 lead in the bottom of the third inning in Houston. Astros starting the day 2 games behind the Angels in the AL West. A 2-2 count on Butler. Did he go? He did not. Another slider, and that takes the count to 3-2. Close.
It was close, and it looked, it looked bad because Joey Butler, watch how quick his hands start to fire. That's a lot of times where you'll get in trouble, but right down there at first base, Chris Conroy getting a good look, that barrel staying put.
3-2 now. Ground ball hit it toward the middle and through into center. Well, he got a 3-2 fastball and managed to hit it through the middle. So a pinch hit for Butler.
Well, Joey Butler, so many of his hits are up the middle the other way. And here, just hard enough. We've seen Freddie Galvis make a number of nice plays here tonight, but couldn't reach that one.
Now John Jaso against the hard-throwing right-hander. Chopper fair right down to first. Howard makes the play unassisted. 7th inning stretch time in Philly. 1-0 Rays. Philadelphia. Here's what's coming up tomorrow on Rays Live. The pregame show is presented by your Gulf Coast Honda dealers. Jay Godorizzi will be on the hill for the Rays. We'll hear from him on the pregame show. Orestes will break down Ben Revere, the Philadelphia Phillies outfielder. Jake McGee will take over on the hill. The Rays make a couple changes here in the bottom of the 7th. McGee on for the 23rd time.
Well, big strikeout numbers, 29 and 20 2/3 innings. Opponent's average of 162, and he has been, well, about as flawless as you can be since returning.
There's the other change. Brandon Geyer's in left, and he's going to go into the lineup in the 9th spot. So the pitcher is in the leadoff spot. Jaso out of the game. First pitch from Jake McGee to Cody Ashe is a fastball down. 1 ball, no strikes.
Well, you get left, and switch here for Jake McGee.
Broken bat and a ground ball to third. Longoria takes care of Ashe.
That's almost a gimme if Philadelphia is going to stick with that lineup, and so far they are. Ashe just makes the out. Dominic Brown now coming to the plate left-handed, almost giving away an inning here.
Well, there's Brown, who singled in the second inning after an extended at bat, a 9-pitch at bat and a single in the second. Next time up, he grounded out on the first pitch. Now he bats against Jake McGee. That pitch is a strike. A little looper into left center field, and there's a base hit. So Brown crosses up the Rays there on that lefty-lefty matchup and drops a base hit into left center.
Well, this is sometimes where it doesn't go according to plan. I think anybody thinks, listen, if you stick with Ashe and Dominic Brown, that's advantage, big advantage to Jake McGee. But that pitch mislocation, and Brown was able to drop it out into the outfield for a 1-out hit.
It's Andres Blanco. Blanco turning around to bat from the right side. Cut to miss. Going after that 95-mile-per-hour fastball. Jammed him, and he pops him up. Elmore out from short. 2 gone. 2 outs with Brown at first. Cameron Rupp, the catcher, strolls toward the plate. Against Carnes tonight, Rupp struck out on a good breaking ball back in the second inning, and then hit a sinking line drive into center field in the 5th. And Kevin Kiermaier turned in a sparkling play on that one. Now it's Rupp against McGee. It's too low. Francoeur out on deck. The pitcher's due next.
Hammer time.
1 ball, 1 strike. Only run in this game provided by Nathan Carnes' first big league home run back in the 3rd. We are 1-0 in the bottom of the 7th. Dominic Brown at first.
Well, a team not built on power, but built on speed. Will attempt stolen bases, attempt running. This would be an opportunity to do that. Jake McGee just keeping an eye on Brown.
And late on the fastball at 97, it's 1-2.
Everything that Jake McGee does is quick twitch. He's got the higher leg kick, but it's up and down quickly. Gets rid of the ball quickly. It gets to home plate quickly. And Rene Rivera, we've already seen what he can do, catch and throw.
Upstairs, well, the Rays pride themselves on their ability to play good defense. 5 Phillies have been thrown out on the bases so far in the first 2 games of this series. 3 runners trying to advance and 2 caught stealings. Brown was caught stealing last night. Hernandez tonight. And the fastball's away to take the count to 3-2. So with 2 outs, Brown will get a running start. And there's ball 4 upstairs. So McGee walks the number 8 hitter, pushing Brown up to second base. And now Francoeur is going to come on to hit for the pitcher.
Well, and he had the big walk-off home run on Sunday against the Marlins. He's been clutch for this Phillies team. A lot of big hits. Well, you see right there what he's done pinch hitting. How about those numbers?
Well, they are staggering, to say the least. 8 of 16 with a homer and 9 runs batted in.
I think that's what, 500 average is great, but more runs batted in than hits even. And here he's given another big opportunity and a pretty good idea of what he's going to see from Jake McGee.
He's faced McGee 1 other time in his career. 0 for 1 against McGee. And the pitch is a strike. Starts him with a fastball on the outer part of the plate. And a big cut at that fastball. Well, he was up there fully expecting to get the heat.
I think the mislocation there by Jake McGee actually helped him. He was trying to go away with that pitch, and he yanked it in. And Francoeur's swing had gotten long, so it got in on him. And there was really nothing he was going to be able to do with that pitch. So yanking that fastball actually worked out for Jake. Now he just needs 1 more.
Oh-2. He got him. 99 on the gun for that one to strike out Francoeur. 2 men left for Philadelphia. We head to the 8th. 1-0 Rays. Tampa Bay Radiation Oncology by Kubota. Visit FloridaKubotaDealers.com. By the all-new LG G4. And by your Gulf Coast Honda dealers. Our Golden Diamond Source game summary. Rays got their run in the third on the home run by Nathan Carnes, his first hit, and a home run to boot. He gave the Rays 5 innings of shutout baseball. Well, Nathan Carnes joining Esteban Yan. First hit, home run. Jeanmar Gomez is the third pitcher now for the Phillies, with Steven Souza Jr. in there to face him. And a bunt attempt by Souza Jr. Strike one.
Well, here in tonight's return from the disabled list, swinging the bat has not gone according to plan for Souza Jr. So looking to lay something down there, use his feet, use his speed to try to get a base hit.
It's inside. Souza Jr. was called out on strikes in the first inning, and then out swinging in the third and again in the fifth. 1-1 the count. And he's behind 1-2. Kevin Jepson up in the Rays bullpen. Two balls, two strikes. Two. Well, the Rays in the early stages of this game, in the first inning, had a man in scoring position, could not get him home, so they immediately went 0 for 3. And since then, the only other time they've had anybody in scoring position was back in the fifth. And Souza is out on strikes for the fourth time tonight.
He's just not seeing the ball well at all. And the last two swings and misses in this at bat were 91, 92 mile an hour fastballs on the outer half that were just swung over. You go back to his first at bat where he took 3 fastballs in a row to strike out. Looks like he's not picking the ball up.
That'll be Evan Longoria. Gomez was in the game last night. That's a strike. He pitched the 8th inning. Longoria reached against him on an error. Having 0 for 3 tonight. Rays lead at 1-0 on that Carnes home run. The last time there was a 1-0 game in which the only run came on a home run by a pitcher was the Milwaukee Brewer win over the Pirates 1-0 on the 29th of April in 2009 when Giovanni Gallardo homered for the only run. Now it's 1-2 on Longoria. The last time it occurred in the American League was in April of 1962 when Milt Pappas homered for the Baltimore Orioles against the Yankees. And the Orioles beat New York 1-0 on April 18th, 1962. This one in interleague play, and it's 1-0 with 1 out in the 8th. Loney next. 2-2 to Longoria. Count's going to go full. There's James Loney on deck. Loney still after his first hit of the series. And a full count on Evan Longoria. Foul the right side, out of play. Evan has struck out twice, is grounded out, once to the left side, last time to the right side, and he, like Loney, looking for his first hit in the Philadelphia series. And enough of that one to stay alive. Orioles are batting in the top of the 7th, and they trail the Yankees 3-2 at Yankee Stadium. Ground ball right side. Howard gloves and the throw to first with Gomez covering. Longoria is out of there. 3-1.
Well, you know, again, Ryan Howard, the only guy over there on the right side. Evan Longoria trying to go that way. That ball was off the end of the bat, broke the bat. And Howard just going to make the play, turn, and lead his pitcher, Gomez, right to the bag.
James Loney 3 times is grounded out. Once to second, once to first, and the last time to short on a good play by Freddie Galvis over there. Too low. Rays got a run on 5 hits off Nola. No runs, 1 hit against Garcia. Now they face Gomez. Ground ball toward the middle, backhanded by Hernandez. And he throws out Loney for the 2nd time tonight. 1-0 Rays. The bottom of the 8th, 1-0 Rays lead this game. We'll be with you tomorrow afternoon with Jay Coterizzi's after win number 6. Our coverage begins at 12:30 on Sun Sports. Coterizzi will be opposed by young left-hander Adam Morgan. Well, the Rays holding a 1-0 lead tonight and hoping that tomorrow they'll be looking for a series win. The Rays will then be headed home. Rays will have a day off on Thursday, and then the Orioles and the Tigers come in on this next homestand. Kevin Jepsen enters the game. He'll face the top side of this Philly order. Jepsen will be pitcher number 5. Herrera has a walk in 3 plate appearances, officially 0 for 2. He comes out swinging at the fastball, fouling it, strike 1.
Well, we've seen that here the first 2 games in this series. Odubel Herrera, he wants to swing that bat. You see it there in the difference. A 273 average usually lends itself to an on-base percentage higher than 303, but just does not take walks.
The walk he drew tonight in the first was his 10th of the year. And that's a strike. The curveball. 0-2.
Jepsen, it's the fastball, the power curveball, the occasional changeup.
That's going to be foul, rolling off and back to the right. Herrera, Galvis, and Hernandez do. And the 0-2 gets him. Boy, that hard curveball, and Herrera's out on strikes.
Boy, and you know what? That's been part of the game plan, because between Nathan Carnes and now Kevin Jepsen, they have just thrown him a ton of the curveballs with the good depth. And you can see that one dropped way out in front, the little timing mechanism with Herrera and that big leg kick. And he can't stay back.
Freddie Galvis. Fastball, 98 for the strike. Hit the ball to the wall in the first, caught by Souza Jr. And then one off the right field wall for a double in the third. We're going to bunt that one, but kept the bat back. And it's 1-1. Galvis wound up at third base in the 3rd inning. And he's the only Philly base runner to reach third tonight. Two balls and a strike. Three and one. Did not offer on the high fastball.
Well, and you want to make sure that Philadelphia Philly hitters earn their way aboard. So Kevin Jepsen needs to come back here and find himself making a pitch. 3-1, not going to be easy. Find a good spot, go where you know you can get a strike.
3-1, he taps it foul, and that will run the count all the way out.
Well, now you get a little bit more margin for error. We know Galvis is another hitter in this lineup that likes to swing the bat. So something close here, and he's going to be turning the swing loose. See Rene Rivera eyeballing Galvis. They're going to go right back to that heater away.
3-2, and he got him. Overpowered him with that pitch.
Well, that's Freddie Galvis wanting to swing the bat. And I guess apparently you didn't even need to get it close, because this is a fastball that almost bounces. It did bounce, and he did swing.
Well, you got to get it started early. He knows that. He wants to swing the bat anyway, as a lot of these Philly hitters do. So back-to-back strikeouts, one on the curveball and that one on the fastball.
That's still something you don't see very often. Okay, breaking ball in the dirt, change up in the dirt, fastball in the dirt. Not often. You just go back to the at bat that he had in yesterday's game off of Matt Moore. I mean, how many balls did he swing at? 5 or 6 of them.
Yep, at least in that one at bat.
Yeah.
He just refused. Did everything he could to prevent Moore from walking him.
You can do that if you hit 45 a year.
1-1 now on Hernandez. We're in the bottom of the 8th in Philadelphia. Shot to center field. Kiermaier is going to have to go back, but he's there and makes the catch to retire the side. We're headed into the 9th inning, and the Rays lead 1-0.
On to a 1-0 lead right after the game. It'll be our Rays Live post-game show presented by Checkers. Rich Schallenberg and Orestes Estrada will host. Thoughts from Dwayne Stats and Brian Anderson. I'll be down in the Rays clubhouse gathering interviews. We'll hear from the manager, Kevin Cash. All that coming up on Rays Live presented by Checkers. Guys?
All right, Todd, thank you very much. Gomez still out there on the hill to begin his 2nd inning in relief. Aaron Nola, the 22-year-old right-hander out of LSU, made his major league debut. Gave up the 1 run on the Carnes home run in 6 innings. Garcia worked 1. Gomez worked the 8th, and Logan Forsythe begins the 9th inning. The pitch is a strike. Brad Boxberger up in the Rays bullpen. Back 0-2. Diekman, the hard-throwing lefty, in the Philly pen right now. Tapper, that's going to stay fair, and the throw is wide. An infield hit for Forsythe. Gomez making that off-balance throw in desperation and could not get it close to the bag.
You know, this is one of those plays, and you almost see if this will roll foul. It was not going to. That's why Gomez, no chance for really anybody to make that play, and Gomez tries to do or die. The ball's wide, Forsythe's on, and that's going to end his night. Swinging bunt.
Infield hit for Forsythe. The Rays are going to see the big lefty Diekman when we return. Saturday, it's an MLB doubleheader starting with the Athletics taking on the Giants. Then at 7 p.m. Eastern, the Braves battle the Cardinals. Coverage begins at 4 p.m. Eastern only on Fox Sports 1 and streaming live on Fox Sports Go. Jake Diekman, a hard-throwing left-hander, on to face Kevin Kiermaier. The Rays with a runner at first and nobody out in the ninth.
An opportunity here to move them along and try to lengthen out this lead. I mean, this has been a nail biter all night long. One run between the two teams.
Chopper foul outside of first for a strike. A 1-0 game here. The Rays have been involved so far this year in 17 shutouts. They've been shut out 9 times, and they have thrown 8 shutouts. They had a 1-0 victory over the Mariners in Seattle back on September the 5th. And they have lost 3 1-0 decisions. Kiermaier takes a strike. It's 0-2.
Well, you know what? When you have a pitching staff like the Rays, it's not surprising. They're going to hold down the opposition a number of times. The offense for the Rays, you know, has been at the bottom of the league all season long, and that creates a lot of close games, a lot of low-scoring games. Or another one here.
Yeah, the Rays in all of those shutouts really have not had a lopsided shutout win. They had one win that was 5-0, but all the rest of them have been that 1-0 win. They've had some 2-0 wins and 3-0 wins. They've all been right down to the wire.
You want to talk about a bullpen that's been battle tested? I mean, it's every single outing.
Kiermaier is out on strikes. One gone in the ninth.
Breaking ball by Diekman, known for that fastball. That actually hung up, stayed in, and Kiermaier just couldn't get the swing to it.
There's Jake Elmore. Elmore had a base hit back in the second. Fastball, 97, and that's a strike. Just like that, he's behind 0-2. One at 96, the other at 97.
And you think about the reach of Diekman. He's kind of like that three-quarter, but he's tall and lanky, and he's driving that fastball that's coming in at that velocity, and it's boring in towards the inner half of the plate. It looks like it's coming right at you. Just hope he leaves one out over the plate that you can get the barrel to, because if he buries that on the inner third, it's just not much you can do.
Forsythe is aboard, one out. Popped up, foul ball, and Howard's after it. Two gone. Fastball running in on his hands.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's where it comes down to execution for Diekman. He leaves that pitch over the plate. It gives the hitter a chance. If he gets it in there, it's going to eat your hands up, or you're going to swing through it. See where Rupp is set up, that ball running in. You just cannot get the head there. Get off of me.
Well, Rene Rivera's the hitter. A soft toss to first. A little reminder for Forsythe. And Rivera takes that pitch for a strike. A couple of sliders there back to back. Not much going against the Philly bullpen in the first two games of this series. And there's a fastball for strike three call. Two strikeouts for Diekman will go to the bottom of the ninth in a 1-0 game. matchup between Nathan Carnes and the rookie Aaron Nola. Carnes gave the Rays 5 shutout innings, allowing 3 hits and belted a home run. That has accounted for the only run in this game.
Now, for the last 3 innings, the Rays bullpen has caused that home run to hold up. Got to do it one more time.
On to the bottom of the 9th inning. And Brad Boxberger will take over on the hill. A couple of changes. Boxberger on the mound, making his 42nd appearance. Tim Beckham's going to enter the game at shortstop. And Beckham will hit first. And that puts Boxberger in the 7th spot. And the Rays plan for that to be only an academic move as far as the lineup is concerned. It will be Ryan Howard to face Brad Boxberger. And the pitch is a strike to get the count running in the favor of the Rays right-hander. And the shift is on for Howard.
And deep out into right field is Logan Forsythe. You know, we saw when the opportunity to turn a double play was there. Logan, who's right here, was more up in this general area, but with nobody on, not worrying about the speed or lack thereof of Ryan Howard, you go deep.
Big popper, foul. Rivera gives it a look and a bit of a chase, but no chance. 1-2 the count on Ryan Howard. Ashe will be next, and then Brown. And a cut and a miss. Howard out on strikes, missed the fastball.
Missed it by a ton. Completely overmatched on this pitch. I mean, there was no chance.
Here's Cody Ashe. It's fouled back. Carnes for 5, Geltz for a third, Cedeno 2/3, McGee 1, Jepson 1, and now it's Boxberger. High fly ball toward the line and right. Souza Jr. is there. It's a foul ball and out number 2. 2 gone in the 9th. And the hitter will be Dominic Brown. Brown has 2 of the 4 Philly hits tonight. And he's out in front of the changeup, strike 1. Fastball for strike 2. So it's the changeup fastball combo. A little bit of that one to stay alive.
We're just kind of lifting that swing to the top of the zone and beyond to foul that pitch off. And Brad Boxberger with that fastball and that changeup. Hitters just uncomfortable at the plate, caught kind of in between each pitch. I'm going to go right back with the soft stuff here.
And a ground ball to first. Loney will make the